Oh, no, that's more.
Ooh, that's like stomp.
Yeah. Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam Savage.
And I'm Norm.
Oh, yeah, have to be special, don't you, Mr. Savage?
When you say the Adam Savage Project, it seems like I should say the full name.
I'm here with
I tried that. It felt
the
weird.
Adam Savage.
The as opposed to the.
There aren't that many Adam Savages. It's an unusual handle.
I was lucky when I registered the domain adamsavage.com, which if you visit it, you'll notice I haven't updated that website since I built it in 2002.
So you make props for theater.
We have a friend who makes websites.
Yeah.
He makes good websites, and he's always looking for sites that are sample sites.
Yeah.
So if you would like it updated, I can put you in touch with him, and we can make that happen.
You know, I've been offered that many times over the years, and I've taken at least 3 people up on it, and the results have always been disastrous.
So the guy I'm thinking of is the person who did the original design of Tested.
Yeah.
Prior to Berman Braun Whale Rock.
Yeah.
And is almost certainly the best designer I'll ever work with.
I love that.
So
well, by all means, let's totally.
We'll give him. He's looking for showcases for his new product, and you're looking for somebody to bring your website up to a post frames era.
But when I registered the domain, I think I got there just in the nick of time. I registered adamsavage.com in 2001.
Wow, that was crazy late for a name domain.
Yes. And there is a Midwestern radio shock jock by the same name. So thank goodness.
Oops.
I was able to grab that. We missed the domain for mythbusters.com by like 2 months.
Wait, you guys don't own mythbusters.com?
No.
Oops.
At the beginning, for the first few years of the show, it was a weight loss site.
Okay.
Well, what is it now?
I don't know. I haven't been there in years.
Don't go.
Before we
Viruses.
Before we bought Tested in 2010, it was a how to not get caught with drugs in your system drug testing site. So
Mythbusters what?
No,
Oh,
tested.com.
Ah, there you go.
And I didn't buy willsmith.com in 1994 because, it was $70 to register a domain back then. I was in college. $70 was 6 weeks of beer money. That was a lot of drinking.
Yeah. Upkeep throughout the years, something you never use.
Yeah, exactly.
Domain hoarding.
So I have not that willsmith.com.
So mythbusters.com says, not affiliated with the TV show. You can find many popular myths busted in plenty of different topic areas. Sticky myths about peanut. Wow.
Is it a YouTube show?
Medicare myths you should know about. This
sounds
looks
like a
some sort of
conspiracy.
aggregator.
Oh, always important to buy the domain through an agent before you announce the product. That's the lesson.
So way back during the early run of West Wing, one of the great television shows ever, Richard Schiff as Toby says to somebody, "Where did you learn that? Thingsthatarewrong.com?" And Julia was, before we'd met, she was watching it and she was like, "Oh, I need that domain." And she went and looked it up. It had been registered the day before the broadcast by the network.
No kidding.
And they do that all the time now. Name drop domains and use that as viral.
Yeah, viral marketing.
Viral marketing.
How I Met Your Mother was famous for that through the years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the slaps. They had a slapsgiving countdown site. They had all sorts of stuff that gave you extra insight into the TV show.
Nice.
Extra insight into the TV show.
What is the world of Barney Stinson like?
My kids are obsessed with that. I saw a funny thing on Reddit, the stoner realization meme on Reddit. The guy's like, "Whoa!" One of them was Neil Patrick Harris plays Barney Stinson with all the camp. He plays a straight man with all the same overdone camp that straight men often portray gay men with.
Oh, that is absolutely true.
Isn't it? I feel like we've all been trolled in the most beautiful way possible.
Is there any I knew
That's true. That was my stoner.
I was watching you scan through.
I knew when I saw his cameo in Harold and Kumar as alternate reality Neil Patrick Harris, who has massive drug problems, all sorts of issues. I knew he was a funny guy.
Yeah.
Like you knew he had a sense of humor about Neil Patrick Harris.
He's a really good friend of a friend of mine who has threatened to introduce us for many years because I revere him and think he's awesome. And I was near him once at the Emmys, but we were at adjacent stalls in the bathroom, and I didn't think that was the right time to introduce myself.
Hey, do you mind if I get a picture?
Selfie? Bathroom selfie? No bathroom selfies, please.
Bathroom.
He Yeah, he's a wonderful man. He seems like a
wonderful
he's a great Twitter follow too.
He totally is.
He is a good. He posts a ton of good. He goes to good restaurants and he posts lots of pictures and he's completely unashamed about it.
Yeah.
Which I approve of.
Is it okay?
Genuinely funny.
You know what? He does it infrequently enough and for special occasion meals enough that I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think posting your burrito at lunch is particularly a good idea. However,
I will say if you post pictures of food, don't post it at a dramatic angle where it looks like the food is falling off your plate all the time. That is my newest pet peeve.
Is that your newest pet peeve?
Oh, I know.
Where people like when they post, I don't mind like looking at pictures of food, but when they do it because they try to fit it in the Instagram box, which is a square,
right?
They do it at the angle. Like, your food's falling off your plate. Well, you got to level that plate.
Don't fear the square.
It's like the MySpace angle for food.
Yes, where it's like dramatic angle for food to fit it in the diagonal. It's like, it's falling into your mouth or something.
So speaking of food falling into your mouth, the last 2 weeks we've talked about, I think first worst jobs.
Yes.
Then best jobs.
Yes.
I think we should close the jobs trilogy by talking about our dream jobs.
Our dream jobs. Yes. So like first dream jobs.
I think there's two categories here. There's things that you wanted to do when you were a young child to say entering the workforce. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to be an astronaut. I wrote a letter to President Reagan when they got the first teacher in space, because from the concept of teacher in space, it immediately transferred to student in space for me. It was
right. It's only one degree of separation.
1 degree separation. I know teachers. These are people just like me. I'm in 4th grade. I think I should go up on the next space shuttle.
Absolutely. It's totally logical.
I got a lovely letter back from the president's office that was like, we appreciate your interest if we ever institute a student in space. And then, of course, the Challenger blew up and that whole dream died.
Thank you for your letter. As a student, you are one of the first programs we are gutting in our zeal to.
Good luck. We've already kicked everybody out of the mental hospitals.
Yes.
But
So you astronaut was an early one.
And then I was blind, and my dream of too blind to be a pilot.
Right.
And my dream of being an astronaut went away because you
need 20/20 vision.
You need good vision to fly the space shuttle. Yeah, it was very sad.
So was there really a moment at which you realized that?
4th grade.
Oh wow!
Like I went to the eye doctor. I was a kid who always had I didn't have trouble in school because I paid attention and listened. I could never see. I couldn't see the board.
Wow.
And in 4th grade, my seating chart put me in the back of the class for the first time.
And you were screwed.
And I was like, my grades went to shit. And they went and talked to my parents. And they were like, you should probably take him to the eye doctor. Went to the eye doctor. Was like, hey, you can wait. You mean everybody else can see stuff that's 5 feet away?
4th grade is when I first got my glasses.
Yeah, it's at the time. It was when they started testing stuff. I think.
Yeah. Wow. So that's interesting that you desired it enough to actually feel disappointment at needing glasses. Like you'd researched what it required.
It's like it's over. The dream's dead. You can't wear contacts and be a fighter pilot. So
4th grade, I wanted to be RoboCop. So
you wanted
Norman, there's still time.
I didn't realize what the process that you needed to go.
Creep.
Hilarious.
Had you seen RoboCop in 4th grade, or did you just know?
I saw RoboCop, the TV show, the terrible TV show.
That must have been
the live action. Oh no, but it was amazing. In 4th grade. Oh my god, it was amazing. I walked like RoboCop for weeks.
Did you carry a toy gun right by your leg and try to that was the best part about RoboCop.
I love the gun in the leg, as if there's no other mechanics in there.
No, it's a huge gun. It takes up his whole thigh. So ridiculous.
What goes on in there?
So Adam Savage, Mythbuster.
Yes.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I've said this before. The first job I really started telling people that I wanted, because there's a certain point, and it is maybe around 4th or 5th grade, when people start to say, so what do you want to be when you grow up?
Don't ever ask it's on the list of trite questions you can ask a child that makes you treat children differently than adults. I think, so what do you want to be when you grow up is high on that list.
It is. It's it's often stated that in places like Europe, the question, what do you do, rarely comes up among strangers, because there is a sensibility in places that are not America that what you do does not define you.
Well, people have avocations,
right,
and don't work 80 hours a week.
Right. But here in the U.S., that is a totally It's a totally standard question you get within 2 or 3 minutes of meeting anybody. And I have a really difficult time not asking it because it's so ingrained in us. But I aspire to not caring necessarily what someone does for a living and just talking to them about what they're reading and what they're watching and what's going on.
You should ask, what do you make?
What do you make? That's another, those are great questions. But I think, what do you want to be when you grow up is, it shows how inane the question of what do you do can be.
Yeah, because, I mean, ultimately, when you ask that question, most people, Norm and I included, sit in cubes in front of computers and type all day. Right. Like, that's what I do for a living. Sometimes we sit in front of a camera and talk. Most of the time, typing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, but back then, I was, 9 years old. So this is the mid 70s. And the Lego had first started coming out with the space sets. And it was the first Lego building these really big, desirable sets. They had space, they had castles.
Mm-hmm. They'd done the city stuff before.
They'd done the city stuff, right? Like the ambulance and the police station and that.
It was a little close to playing with dolls.
Yeah. But the space stuff was where I started actually spending my allowance and birthday money, and where I started picking stuff up at garage sales. And I was building just all the time in my room. And
building and tearing down and building
and tearing down. And also, it was around the time Star Wars came out. So I started building Lego environments for my Star Wars 3.5-inch action figures.
If only.
I built secret doors all the time. I loved building secret doors in Lego.
I want to have secret doors. I want to build a house one day solely so I can have a secret room that has a bookshelf that opens to go into it.
Totally.
Like I want it to be, I don't want it to be like a storage room. I want it to be a lair.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
Like desk.
I'm totally down with
some big giant 60s era computers with spinny tape things on the wall.
Yes.
All sorts.
Kevin Smith has that because he bought it from Ben Affleck. Kevin Smith lives in Ben Affleck's old home, and which has a secret room, and it's very sad.
Peter Jackson. Oh, it's a sad.
It's a sad. Room? It's just like you open the door. It's a closet.
I have to imagine Guillermo del Toro has a secret room.
He does have a secret room.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson has a secret room.
That makes sense.
That is apparently incredible, according to Rick Baker. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to disclose what was behind that secret door.
No, secrets are.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have always also wanted, that's totally a key thing, a secret door to a secret place to like this, right? So I want a door that goes to a basement that ends up here.
What is the entrance into your secret room? What is the access point? No, I mean, what is the access?
What's the book? What book do you tilt?
Or is it a book mechanism? Is it 2 taps on a keyboard?
No.
A piano?
It's a book mechanism. To me, it's a book mechanism. And I've
Shakespeare's head.
No, I've always said that it's simulacra and simulacrum from The Matrix.
Oh man, what would mine be?
But I still haven't answered the question.
Yes.
So back then, I was building very assiduously with Legos. I was so proud of my builds that Saturday mornings I would wake up really early and build for a couple of hours, and then it would be time for breakfast. And I would always try and, I swear I did this dozens of times, I would try and carry a Lego construction down the stairs, and it always ended up like that chef from Sesame Street. 1 triple layer cake with and he falls with it every single time. That was me. I always fell with a Lego, and I was like, why don't I get used to this? So back then, when people asked me what I wanted to do for a living, I would say very seriously, I would really like to be a designer for Lego.
And so this is another category.
Yeah.
This is the job that I didn't know existed in the time in which it would have been appropriate for me to aspire to this job. Like, I knew that theoretically someone had to make Lego.
Right.
It never would have occurred to me at that age that someone like physically was drawing bricks on graph paper and then cutting molds and making molds.
Well, I was thinking, what's funny is that I knew that you could work for a company and do that kind of thing, but I still didn't think of it in my head as an actual job. You know how you can sort of have that bifurcation of like I hadn't thought through the implications of, wow, that you really would sit and play with the stuff all day long and then make a set out of it. And I've later found that when you interview for Lego, one of the tests they give you is a bunch of parts in a certain period of time, and you've got to make something interesting out of those parts.
We have a friend who who recently, just earlier this year, moved to Denmark to work for Lego. He was in the Bay Area, and
California.
he told us, I'm not sure how much we can talk about this, but the whole interview process. So Lego gets thousands of applications a year, and you can get certified without actually working for Lego as a quote unquote master builder, from which there is also a panel evaluation. One of the tasks you do is you have to make a perfect sphere, and you have to roll it out of Lego with time constraints. And then there is
how big is the sphere? Can you make like a 6-foot sphere, or does it have to be like a ball? That's
it is like a basketball size sphere.
Wow!
And how perfectly you can make a sphere to roll down. And they give you pieces. You get homework, like they mail you, these pieces, and you build out the thing. And the people who apply also very fascinating. It's not just the adult fans of Lego, the people who buy now, the Will Ferrells of the movie, but architects, industrial designers, and people and even like consultants, people who can think in a certain way, or maybe want to change their career, who become these designers. One fun anecdote is that when you work as a designer in Lego, like you have their entire library of bricks. It's like the Matrix, guns. I need more of them.
And there's something like 10,000 or more
than
different
that
bricks
at this point, because they do a lot of specialized one-off pieces that everybody.
So you're encouraged to
frowns upon.
You work on the set you design, and like the Google 10% time, you're encouraged to design on your own.
Right.
When you design something, you're not allowed to break it apart and return it to the shelf. When you're done, you just swoop it into the bin, and they melt them all down and turn them into black bricks.
Wait, what?
Because they don't. If you build something, you take it apart. It's not as new, and so Lego designers only build with new bricks.
Wow.
And it's cheaper.
Luxury.
It's cheaper for them to melt them down and recycle them and make them black bricks than to resort.
Wow.
The bricks
Norm, you are blowing my mind.
Yeah, to visit that factory.
I'm so sad.
So I remember seeing. So back then, you could subscribe to a subsidiary of National Geographic magazine called World Magazine.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, and they had pictures of the Lego land in Denmark, and you could see all the big buildings, like on the the famous row of houses on the Hague done in Lego and that kind of stuff. So that was the first thing I knew I wanted to do for a living. And then after Star Wars came out and it became the juggernaut that it was, and I so clearly remember that summer of '77, hearing about it, and then I saw it at a drive-in theater in Cape Cod.
Oh.
And I remember my dad being like, well, that was a piece of shit.
The artist.
Yes. The filmmaker, I still can't disagree with his reasoning. I'm quite sure, those characters are wooden and the thing is silly. And of course, yes, totally hungry and totally for a different generation and a totally new kind of movie. And more than that, once it became the juggernaut, there was all this extra material on it. So you could buy Starlog and you could buy Fangoria, and you could see pictures of my heroes, the makers of Star Wars: Lorne Peterson, Richard Miller, Steve Gawley, Larry Tan, Greg Gian, these original guys who built all the ships and the sets and the miniatures for Star Wars. Phil Tippett. And I so coveted what they did. I was just getting into models at that point, and I pored over books at the library of model work and looked at what they did and saw that you could make stuff up, that you could take models and change them and make them into other things. So the first thing I ever knew I wanted to do was Legos. Second thing was to work on Star Wars.
It's interesting because so I'm about 10 years younger than you, I think, maybe 9. And I came in, I was 2 when the first Star Wars came out, but I was old enough when Empire came out in 81 to hit the full brunt of the marketing effort for that. Including, like, one of the first things I remember watching on TV that this is amazing, I should watch this all the time, and we had just gotten a VCR, so it was recorded, was the CBS airing of Star Wars
Christmas special. Oh no,
no, I don't remember Star Wars, but of Star Wars, and then either before or after it, they had the making of the featurette that shows how they did the stop motion. And I looked at that and I was like, well, I'm in Tennessee. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. This is a thing that is completely out of reach.
Right.
By the time I'm old enough to do this, they'll have stopped making these kinds of movies. Oops.
Both of those desires come from behind the scenes documentation, which is why that stuff is so important for younger generations, for kids, because to expose them and things that we try to do, expose them to vocations that they didn't know.
That is one of the key reasons that I believe in being really open source about the stuff that I do, and why I love doing what we do on this site is we have a deeply open source ethos of here's how it all works. I'm not pulling aside the curtain. There is no curtain.
Right.
There is no artifice to this. I want to show you exactly how it works in the dirty hands way, and there's no mystery to it. And if there is still a mystery to it, please ask a question so we can clear up that mystery so you can go do this yourself.
It's so funny. As a kid, you don't realize that everything that happens in the world was made by someone.
Right.
There's a job for everything. But even when you realize that there's a job, there's still the magic. That job is magic.
It can seem to be magic.
It's the appeal of 99% Invisible, right? We've talked about this before on the other podcast. Norm interviewed Roman Mars, who's the guy behind 99%. But the whole premise is that behind the thin veneer of the things we take for granted, there's a story attached to pretty much everything.
Right.
And they go through and find those stories in a very fascinating way.
So,
current dream jobs.
Oh,
Yes.
no. I want to know what your
real dream job? It was a comic book artist.
Comic book artist. That's an awesome one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
That's an awesome one. Do you have some of your early drawings?
Oh, they're so bad. I remember
you
drawing
should
a lot of
totally
Batman.
post them.
I don't know. I got to go to a parent's house and dig them up.
You should choose one and post it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's bad. You got to inspire kids who like, wow, look at that.
Well, it's not any better today, so I don't know.
Well,
current or past?
Past.
The astronaut thing was it for a long time. I wanted to go be a doctor for a long time. Went to college and got all the way through applying for med school and all that stuff. And that's why I have a biochemistry degree.
Yeah.
At the time, that was a preferred. You did a lot of the legwork that was going to be difficult in med school as part of your undergraduate degree, so that then you could at least coast through the biochem classes in med school was the theory. And then I went and worked for a doctor the summer, I think between my junior and senior year in college. I was like, this is a fucking horrible way to live. So what am I going to do now?
Long hours, etc.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally that I looked at a guy who was, I think, 33 or 34 years old at the time. I worked for him, and he had two 36-hour shifts a week, and then office hours. The 36 hours was, 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. the next day, 12 midnight the next day. And like he had a 2-year-old kid that he saw just
once a week,
twice a week, maybe. Yeah. Because of the schedules never lined up.
That's really rough.
And I was like, I love the idea of helping people, but there's other ways to help people. And I don't think I want to spend 10 years in school and accrue $250,000 debt. This is I was a real serious 22-year-old, but I didn't want to do it. And I'd been paying for college with IT work. And so I had an easy thing to coast into. And then I got a job writing for Ars Technica. Just from literally, I wrote a letter to one of the guys there and was like, hey, I like your site, but you're kind of fucking up this section of it. Do you want, can I help? Or is there anything I can do? When they were 3 months old. And that kind of snowballed into where I am now.
All right. So dream job now.
I think I would love to be a chef. I'd love to cook.
Oh,
That's great. It is. There's a danger with taking an avocation and turning it into a vocation.
Right. So do you want to cook like in a restaurant setting?
Oh, you mean?
I mean, do you want to cook? Julia and I, my wife and I, we hosted a wedding party for a pair of dear friends of ours who eloped, but they had a party for their friends.
That's an awesome way to do it, by the way.
It is. And Julia wanted to cater the party. So she did, and I was one of her sous, and there we were in our kitchen there over here in the Mission, and we didn't leave the kitchen for the whole party. We were the caterers, and a party happened in our house that we mostly didn't attend, and frankly, it was awesome.
So one of the things I realized doing the setup, helping with the setup for our party at Comic-Con, is that I love that kind of. Like, I'm good at long deadlines and I'm good at very, very short deadlines, but kind of intermediate deadlines, it's tough.
Yeah.
the kind of field marshalness nature of running that kind of scale with a bunch of people that have to work really closely together is something that is deeply satisfying to me.
Agreed. And with a crew as good as the one at Sidebar that we were dealing with.
Well, and we had the Whale Rock folks and your people from your team. And it was, everything worked really, really well. But getting that to that point took a lot of work. And from talking to Tracy and some other chef friends that Gina and I have, the work that you do in a kitchen is very similar. Now, the problem is I haven't spent the 15 years that I need getting to the point that I have the skills to earn the right to run the kitchen that way.
Yeah.
So, probably, maybe that's a third act job, but
absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's all. It's always been very appealing to me.
You could sling hash in a bed and breakfast later in life.
I would love short order line cook is one of my all-time favorite. Like, it is a super satisfying thing to do.
I totally agree. Yeah. I've actually hosted breakfasts at our house with a bunch of friends, like 10 friends, where I cook eggs however you want them. And I have so much fun doing it.
Do you have a big griddle?
We don't have a big griddle. I wish we did.
We can make a big griddle.
Oh, yeah, we totally could.
I can go to the steel place, get a piece of 1/4-inch steel. We'll have it ready to go in 2 hours.
Okay. Norm.
Okay.
I'm going to go back for 1 second. I'm curious about kids out there today because I have a very distinct memory of being in 4th grade, and there was the "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I remember most kids said doctor or lawyer, because it was the job that made the most money.
Oh, interesting.
In the minds of kids,
right.
Even then, and there is a very literal Game of Life board game where you get the vocations, and
how much they
doctor and lawyer are the good ones.
Doctor or lawyer are the good ones.
Right.
You always want those.
Yeah.
And then growing up also, having parents that said, you want, and I'm sure parents today, you encourage kids to explore their hobbies and interests, but you want job security, especially in this job market. So I'm really interested in knowing what in schools today, what they teach.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Well,
what's funny is that there are some terrific what are considered blue-collar jobs that no one's being directed towards because vocational training has been put off to the sidelines. Meanwhile, there are industries across the United States, like John Deere tractors, that can't find enough welders, can't find enough hydraulic engineers.
Machinists.
Because there's a stigma around this. These are jobs with fantastic starting salaries, good solid unions, great benefits, where the work is challenging and creative, and we're not prioritizing that. And that's a sad thing. Mike Rowe talks about that all the time.
Well, exactly.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dream job.
I'm holding that close.
You mean current dream job? You're holding it close to the vest.
Holding it close.
That's totally reasonable.
And also, I think when you reach, when you're older, the dream job you have, becomes more pragmatic. It's a pragmatic dream job.
Well, it becomes more about,
like, you never say, "I'm going to be the president." That's not a dream job for someone.
Some people
at 30.
Funny, occasionally I do occasionally think about politics. Just because I like speaking and I like communicating, but then I think about what politics actually entails, and I don't think I have the stomach for it.
The internship that I did on Capitol Hill was horrible.
You infuse
Those people are bad.
A sense of pragmatism in your dream, which can limit your dream and your ambitions, but you can still be ambitious.
So for the longest time, I was just doing the job of Mythbusters and not thinking about what kind of job it actually was. And actually, in the beginning, I was under the impression that I was doing a job that was about making things, but it totally is not. And I didn't realize that until I was being interviewed by my now friend acquaintance, Neil deGrasse Tyson, on his podcast, Star Talk. And I was just watching him go, and I was thinking, look at this guy. He really knows exactly what he wants to be doing and how he wants to do it. And he is communicating. He is a communicator. And then I thought about that and I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's also my job. Not only is that cool to watch from here, this is something I can take on as a mantle and understand and deepen my experience of it as a communicator. And what we do here is all part and parcel of that.
But also talking on stages and at Maker Faire and all the other places.
And they're all different types, right? And actually, as you say, talking on stage and Maker Faire, those are two totally different things, right? So Maker Faire, I tend to always wing it because I feel with Maker Faire, I want to go raw and unfiltered. I did a Moth talk last year, which was heavily produced by the wonderful producers at the Moth Radio Hour out of New York. And they really worked over the talk with me and helped me. We changed it very little from its first inception to its last, but we changed it radically in terms of how refined it was.
Well, the beats and the tone and all that, like those podcasts, it's a radio show, but I listen to it as a podcast. It's amazing because there's a whole lot of light touch on that.
And they really, the women that run that thing it's all women as far as I know. I only met women.
Okay.
And they're brilliant. They're brilliant producers. And that again is, I'm communicating something. I'm talking about something. I'm talking about something of my experience, of my understanding, and trying to find the universal thing within that to communicate. As far as that goes, I do dream of one day being a teacher. So I taught at the Academy of Art College in the late 90s and the early 2000s for about 3.5 years, advanced model making and materials science. And I really, really, really loved doing that. And I love the idea of teaching. I have this fantasy of teaching an advanced class in problem solving for some place like Art Center. Just a sort of really free-form class. You come in and it's all Kobayashi Maru.
Like every day you have a pile of stuff on your desk when you come in and it's like, okay.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I would take that
business
class.
School, because you know how business school classes work.
No.
In business school, graduate school, it's all case studies. Every class they give you case studies.
The Pepsi challenge.
Yeah, and you spend that class fixing the business plan.
Oh wow!
So it's basically that for artists.
Right. And to me, the whole thing is there's not a lot of lectures. It's a lot of problem solving and classroom discussion. But that is the thing I feel like is so thrilling to me to partake in. Jamie and I just did an episode, which won't air until next year, but the myth is that a guy built something crazy out of something else under very adverse conditions. Now, we could have just looked at his design and replicated it.
Yeah.
But we started with just putting ourselves under the same restriction.
I think that
we started with the same thing, with the same goal, without looking at what he built and try.
Well, and that's like when you get to see parallel evolution in process. Because the thing that happens is, we test products across a wide spectrum of categories. Right. A lot of the problems are the same, and the way different companies solve them determines between a wonderful, amazing product and a turd sandwich. Not to put too fine a point on it.
A turd sandwich. I'm sure that's what we're going to test on Mythbusters.
The turd sandwich?
How bad is a turd sandwich?
Is it really
universally bad?
I don't know. There's always time to find out.
We were successfully able to do polishing a turd.
Yes.
I also fantasize about being one of those old dudes that builds models for the Smithsonian.
Oh, that is a peach job.
Wouldn't that? I mean, building a ship model, just spending like 6 months every day, 3 or 4 hours a day, just totally refining
so
Air and Space.
If you ever get a chance, the Paul E. Garber facility at the Air and Space Museum is in Maryland. It's where they restore the stuff that goes on display, and that is
that's exactly
like, those dudes have a bomber job,
dude. That is exactly the kind of thing I would like to
You've talked about wanting to find a way to restore spacesuits, that's
right.
But you also, it's the same thing, but you want to do something that's going to be admired and displayed and appreciated.
And in fact, we talked about when I visited the spacesuit archives at the Huntsville, Alabama NASA site. Each of these, every site in the country that is housing old NASA equipment, it's all rotting in different ways because it was all made out of natural materials, gum, latex, and other stuff, and it's just deteriorated. And the idea of using my unique skill set of both as a maker, as a designer, as a problem solver to figure out ways to rescue the history of that ingenuity and put it back on display absolutely thrills me. So there's a whole thing about museums and displaying. And again, it all comes back to communication in one form or another.
So there's 2 more points I want to hit on this because I think it's important. Like when you're in high school or junior high school and you take that test, the test that they give you, the IQ test, and then they give you the aptitude test, and they come back and they say, well, you should be a newspaper reporter, or you should be an artist, or you should be a farmer.
Do you remember in Strangers with Candy where she takes that test and it says crack whore? And she goes, oh, already done that.
Mission accomplished.
One of the darkest jokes ever. Go ahead.
It's grim. But I mean, that whole process is kind of grim. And the point I want to make is if you're 15 or 17 years old and you have a dream job and you get crack whore on your aptitude test, you don't like that. Nothing that's not set in stone. It's not like you get the job chip in Futurama and that's what you have to do forever and ever.
No, it is so
just go do it.
So I ran into this a few months ago. I was on stage with some other really clever people and they disagreed with me about this. But one of the things I would say to my young self is you have more time than you think. Now, that's different than life is short, because it is. And you absolutely shouldn't waste your time doing shit you hate if you can at all avoid it.
Right.
We all have to do shit we hate because that's part of
Nobody
living.
likes expense reports.
Right. But as what I mean by you have time is I remember being 19. Freaking 19. I was a baby. And I was looking at this thing that my friend Craig had welded and thought, oh, I'd love to be able to weld. But, well, I guess that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I literally thought that.
You didn't take the class your freshman year in high school, so you were done.
And so I just thought, well, that'll be beyond me forever. And that's I couldn't believe how stupid I was, how ridiculous that was. So the thing that is a good point that you bring up is you can always change. You can always try something different.
When you are, and it's especially relevant in your teens, because when you're 14 years old, you have the manual dexterity and the brain power of a full-grown adult and the free time of a child, for the most part.
Yeah.
And that gives you an opportunity to, whether you want to learn how to do CAD, character design, whatever it is you want to learn how to do.
Yeah.
You and combined with the awesome power of the internet and YouTube and all of the many things that are out there that can teach you how to do stuff, like use that time to set yourself up to get the dream job in your 20s so that you don't feel like you're slaving away in the salt mines every day.
Yeah.
And like, that's super important. The other thing is that as I get older, I tend to appreciate a work-life balance much more than I did. It's also particularly relevant coming out of I think the busiest July we've ever had.
Well, and let's be clear about, your early 20s, there usually isn't any work-life balance. It's work.
That's fine.
And it ought to be, because that's the time you are going to use to build the career where you can get yourself a work-life balance in your 30s.
Right. Or late 30s in some people's cases.
Yeah.
But yeah, I value much more the ability to be home in time to tuck my daughter in bed and to work at home on Fridays so that I, hear up and down the hall all day and
totally.
And
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
And frankly, when I think about dream jobs and dream job situations for the future, I absolutely weave into it the amount of free time. And I have actually, even before Mythbusters, I was very clear with myself what I wanted to do, what I wanted to make in terms of how comfortable I aspired to be, and how much free time that I wanted in there. And I've been incredibly ludicrously lucky. Mythbusters, we keep relatively regular hours, so I've never missed dinner with my kids, and that's anomalous in television production.
Even in normal jobs.
Even in normal jobs, that's fairly anomalous, and I feel really lucky about that. I've gotten to grow up with them, and they haven't missed me for any large chunks of time.
But I mean, if you take the lesson that I learned from my friend Brian, much too late to help me, and keep your overhead low.
Yes,
because he is the master of selling everything that he owns and just moving to Hawaii and living in a 1-bedroom apartment by the beach because he wanted to surf and make a website. I love
Brian.
He's great. He's who I wanted to be 5 years ago.
He's who we all want to be.
But. Like, if you keep your overhead low, you don't have to be a Mythbuster in order to do what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that also is an important. Of course, we say that living in the most expensive city in the United States, and whatever. It's not.
I know.
Do as I do, not do as I say, not as I do.
But I mean, I was doing the same things when I had no money. I was just doing it on a slightly longer timeline. What I spend money on is commissioning stuff and getting stuff here sooner and getting it done sooner. But I was. I was making, I was making terrible money when I was starting out my prop replicas like the Indiana Jones Grail Diary. It just took me a year and a half to do all the graphics of that in my spare time.
And you can always trade time for money or money for time in most cases.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think that rounds out our job trilogy. Trilogy?
Yeah. This
No
is,
prequels.
We'll come back in 10 years and do it again.
Probably 2 years.
Probably 2 years.
I think things will be very different in a couple of years. You never know.
I think we're almost to the point, it's just time to roll back to the first episode and do all those early episodes again.
Will could be a chef.
Yeah.
Will you could be a teacher.
Right.
I can be a teacher.
Norm could be something
Could be secret.
Norm wants to work for the CIA.
Male prostitute.
Murder people. Assassin. Blogger assassin.
Blogger assassin.
The guy who gives tours of the Pentagon walking backwards.
I've done the tour of the Capitol walking backwards. This is on the left.
Oh, wow.
That was one of my jobs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jamie and I did a tour of the Pentagon, and there was the number of people with giant placards of medals on their chest who came up and said, "How you guys doing? I love your show." Was amazing.
Oh, I'm sure. That's Mythbuster Central, man. You guys got guns and explosions.
Totally. Clearly our core audience. Hi, Pentagon.
Blogger assassin is the most Warren Ellis job I've ever heard.
That's great.
I guess I'll do it for us this week.
All right.
If you like it, record the show. You're leaving. I think this is going to be the last podcast that we record that goes up from your time in Australia before you go to Australia.
Oh, okay.
So next time we talk to you, or maybe the time after next,
past.
It'll be the future.
Right.
And we're going to talk about how your Australia trip was.
Yes. That's very exciting.
There are blog posts that you're writing.
Yep,
that's
I'm gonna keep.
Now you're committed.
Blogging during the tour while I'm in Australia. We're getting a grand tour of Australia: Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Auckland, New Zealand. I believe I'm going to tour Weta Workshop, see some of my friends down there. We have a couple of days in each city. I'm bringing my kids for the first couple of weeks, and my wife is coming for the whole.
Are they all
tour.
piling on the bus? Oh, you're not busing this time.
Not busing, it's flying because
It's too
everything's
big.
far apart in Australia.
Are you going to go out in the desert and find a small person with a boomerang and recreate anything from what are your goals aside from a successful tour?
No idea.
You don't have any Australia plans?
No. It's where I'm seeing one of my closest friends when we first get there, which is like the day after tomorrow.
Yeah. It's the day before. It's actually tomorrow.
Yes.
No, it's the day after tomorrow. Anyway, Dateline's confusing.
All you need is kill.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. We're wrapping this up. Let's wrap this up.
Have fun in Australia, Adam. We'll see you in a few weeks.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
like
guys.
us,
Bye.
rate us, blah, blah, blah.